Olivia rushed through the busy airport, holding her 5-year-old daughter Lily's hand tightly. The morning had been chaotic. Her alarm didn't go off, traffic was terrible, and now they were cutting it close to catch their flight to visit Olivia's mom in Atlanta. "Come on, sweetie, we need to hurry," Olivia said, glancing at her watch. As a top children's doctor at the city hospital, she rarely took time off. This trip had been planned for months, and Lily had been counting down the days to see her grandma. The airport buzzed with travelers rolling suitcases and looking at departure boards. Olivia navigated through the crowd with practiced ease, her carry-on bag slung over one shoulder, and Lily's small backpack shaped like a unicorn in her other hand. They finally reached the security line, which wasn't too long, thankfully. Maybe they'd make it on time after all. "Remember what I told you about going through security?" Olivia asked Lily, who nodded seriously. "Take off my shoes and put my unicorn on the belt," Lily recited proudly. "That's right," Olivia smiled, ruffling her daughter's curly hair. "And stay close to me." As they inched forward in line, Olivia noticed how people moved efficiently through the checkpoint. Business travelers in suits breezed through. Families with kids were helped along, and everyone seemed to be getting through without much fuss. When it was almost their turn, Olivia had Lily take off her little pink sneakers. But just as they were about to walk through the scanner, a TSA agent with a stern face and tight lips held up his hand. "Ma'am, I need you to step aside for additional screening," he said flatly. Olivia looked around. No one else was being pulled aside. "Is there a problem?" she asked politely, still holding Lily's hand. "Random inspection, ma'am," the agent replied, though his eyes didn't meet hers. "Please step over here." Olivia felt a familiar sinking feeling in her stomach. This wasn't the first time she'd been randomly selected when no one else had. She glanced around again and noticed she was the only black woman in this section of the line. The white family of 4 behind her was already going through without any extra checks. "Mommy, what's happening?" Lily whispered, sensing her mother's tension. "It's okay, baby, they just need to check our bags extra carefully," Olivia explained calmly, though inside she was both angry and resigned. She had learned long ago to stay composed in these situations, especially with her daughter watching. The agent directed them to a small area off to the side. Another agent, a woman with blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun, began to meticulously go through their carry-on bags. She removed each item from Olivia's neatly packed bag: her laptop tablet, the book she was planning to read on the flight, Lily's snacks, and even the small gift they were bringing to Grandma. "What's this?" the female agent asked, holding up a small wrapped box. "It's a birthday present for my mother," Olivia answered patiently. "Just a bracelet." "We'll need to unwrap it," the agent said. "But I wrapped it so nicely," Olivia protested mildly. "Can't you just scan it?" "Policy, ma'am," was the curt response as the agent tore into the carefully chosen wrapping paper with little regard. Lily's eyes widened. "But that's Grandma's surprise," she said, her voice rising with distress. Olivia squeezed her daughter's hand. "It's okay, sweetie. We can wrap it again when we get to Grandma's house." While the first agent continued examining their bags, the second agent instructed Olivia to stand with her arms out. He ran a wand over her body, checking for who knows what. Olivia stood still, her face a mask of calm, though her heart raced, with a mix of frustration and humiliation. People walked by, some looking away awkwardly, others staring openly. Olivia kept her eyes straight ahead, determined not to show how much this bothered her. But Lily wasn't as practiced at hiding her feelings. "Why are they checking us and not them?" Lily asked loudly, pointing to another family walking through the regular line. "Shh, honey," Olivia whispered, embarrassed but also proud of her perceptive daughter. The male agent frowned. "Just doing our job, little lady," he said, his tone softer with Lily than it had been with Olivia. "But you're only doing it to us," Lily persisted with the unfiltered honesty of a child. Olivia gave her a gentle look that said, "Not now." And Lily fell quiet, though her small face remained puzzled and troubled. The inspection dragged on. They checked Olivia's ID twice, asking her questions about her work and why she was traveling. They even checked little Lily's unicorn backpack, removing her treasured stuffed bunny and favorite coloring book. "Please be careful with that," Olivia said when they roughly handled the bunny. "It's very special to her." By now, 10 minutes had passed. Olivia checked her watch anxiously. Their flight would start boarding soon, and they still needed to get to the gate, which was on the far end of the terminal. "Excuse me," she said, her professional doctor's voice kicking in. "Our flight board's in 20 minutes. Is this going to take much longer?" The female agent looked up, seemingly surprised by Olivia's calm but firm tone. "We're almost done, ma'am." A supervisor walked by, a tall man with salt and pepper hair. He glanced at what was happening and paused. "Everything okay here?" he asked the agents. "Just a random check, sir," the male agent replied. The supervisor looked at Olivia and Lily, then at the mess of their belongings spread across the table. Something in his expression shifted slightly. "How long has this been going on?" he asked. "About 10 minutes," Olivia answered before the agents could. The supervisor nodded. "I think we're good here," he said to the agents. "Let's get this family on their way." The agents seemed ready to protest but didn't. Instead, they quickly, though not carefully, put Olivia's things back in her bag. "Thank you," Olivia said to the supervisor, making deliberate eye contact. As they hurried away, Lily looked back at the checkpoint where another traveler, a young white man with a much larger backpack, walked through without any additional screening. "That wasn't fair," Lily said once they were out of earshot, her small face serious. Olivia slowed down for a moment, despite their rush. She knelt to Lily's level, right there in the busy terminal. "You're right. It wasn't," she said honestly. "Sometimes people treat others differently because of how they look. It's not right, but it happens." "Because our skin is brown?" Lily asked, her innocent question cutting right to the truth. Olivia's heart ached. She'd hoped to protect Lily from these realities for a little longer, but maybe it was better to be honest. "Sometimes, yes," she admitted. "But what matters is that we know who we are. We're strong, we're smart, and we don't let unfair treatment stop us from doing what we need to do. Right now, that means catching our flight to see Grandma, so let's run." Lily giggled as they broke into a light jog through the terminal, weaving between slower travelers. The unfairness of what had happened still sat heavily in Olivia's chest, but she pushed it aside. This precious week with her mom and daughter was too important to let anything ruin it. They reached the gate just as boarding was starting. Olivia handed their boarding passes to the gate agent, a friendly-looking woman with a warm smile. "Just made it," the gate agent said cheerfully. "Everything okay? You look a bit flustered." Olivia took a deep breath. "We had a bit of a delay at security, but we're fine now." As they walked down the jetway, Olivia pulled out her phone and quickly typed a text message to her husband, Andre. He was away on a business trip, and she hadn't wanted to bother him with this, but she felt he should know. Got randomly selected at airport security again. Nothing new, but it upset Lily. "We'll call when we land. Love you." She hit send just before they stepped onto the plane. What Olivia didn't write in that text was how the supervisor had looked at her name tag on her luggage, how his eyes had widened slightly. She had noticed but thought nothing of it at the time. Little did she know that her husband Andre wasn't just on any business trip, and he certainly wasn't just any businessman. The text she just sent would set in motion events that would change, not just their lives but the entire culture of the airport, where she had just been unfairly targeted. As Olivia helped Lily buckle her seatbelt in their window seat, she pushed the unpleasant security experience from her mind. For now, she would focus on making this trip special for her daughter. The rest could wait. "Look, Lily," she said, pointing out the window. "Can you see all the workers loading the luggage into the plane?" Lily pressed her face against the window, her earlier distress forgotten in the excitement of flying. "I see them. Do you think they'll be careful with my unicorn bag?" "I'm sure." "They will," Olivia said, smiling at her daughter's concern. "And if not, we'll deal with it together, just like we always do." The plane began to back away from the gate. Olivia leaned back in her seat, finally allowing herself to relax. Atlanta and Mom's home-cooked meals awaited them, Whatever had happened at security was behind them now, or so she thought. Andre Wilson sat in his sleek downtown office, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a stunning view of the city skyline. But he wasn't admiring the view. His attention was fixed on his phone, reading the text from his wife Olivia over and over. Got randomly selected at airport security again. Nothing new, but it upset Lily. We'll call when we land. Love you. His jaw tightened. This wasn't the first time Olivia had faced this kind of treatment, but it was the first time it had happened at this particular airport, the one he now owned. 3 months ago, Andre had finalized the deal to become the majority owner of the city's international airport. It had been a quiet acquisition. He hadn't made any public announcements or given interviews. Only a handful of top executives knew about the change in ownership. Andre had planned it this way deliberately. He wanted to observe how the airport really operated before making his presence known. He wanted to see the unfiltered truth, how employees treated travelers when they didn't know the boss was watching. Now, his wife and daughter had unknowingly provided him with exactly that insight, and what he learned made his blood boil. Andre set his phone down and turned to his computer. With a few clicks, he accessed the airport's security camera system. As the owner, he had clearance to view any footage. He quickly navigated to the security checkpoint area and entered the approximate time Olivia and Lily would have gone through. It took him about 10 minutes to find them. There they were, Olivia in her navy blue blazer and Lily with her little unicorn backpack. Andre watched the entire incident unfold exactly as he'd suspected. His wife and daughter were the only ones pulled aside for a random inspection, despite dozens of other travelers passing through at the same time. He leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. This wasn't just about his family. How many other black travelers faced this same discriminatory treatment every day? The airport saw thousands of passengers daily. How many were subjected to these so-called random searches that didn't seem random at all? Andre picked up his phone and called his assistant. Tom, I need you to clear my schedule for the afternoon. Something urgent has come up. You have the meeting with the investors at 3, Tom reminded him. Reschedule it. This can't wait. Andre ended the call and pulled up another contact. Patricia Reynolds, the airport's operations director. She was one of the few people who knew about his ownership. Patricia, I need you to arrange an immediate meeting with the head of TSA operations at the airport. Don't tell them who I am yet, just that the owner wants to meet, and I want the agents, who were working at Terminal B security checkpoint around 9:30 this morning. Particularly, he checked the footage again, zooming in on the agents' ID badges. Officers Daniels and Porter. Of course, Mr. Wilson. May I ask what this is regarding? Discrimination at our security checkpoints, Andre said bluntly. I've seen it firsthand, and it stops today. After ending the call, Andre stood up and walked to the window. From his downtown office, he could just make out the airport in the distance. Those gleaming terminals that welcomed millions of travelers each year were supposed to represent freedom and opportunity. Instead, for too many people who looked like his wife and daughter, they were places of humiliation and bias. When he had purchased the airport, Andre had dreams of modernizing it, making it more efficient and profitable. But now he realized there was something much more fundamental that needed to change first. His phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Meeting set for 2 p.m. in the executive conference room at the airport. All parties confirmed attendance. Andre grabbed his jacket. He had some time before the meeting and he intended to use it. Instead of taking his usual private entrance, he decided to go through the main terminal like any other traveler. He wanted to see more of how his airport really operated. 30 minutes later, Andre parked in the public lot and walked into the bustling terminal. He dressed casually in jeans and a polo shirt, not the sharp suits he typically wore for business. No one gave him a second glance as he moved through the crowded space. He stopped at various points, observing the flow of travelers. At the check-in counters, he noticed how some staff were more patient and helpful with certain passengers than others. In the security lines, he counted how many people were pulled aside for additional screening and made mental notes about who they were. The patterns were subtle but unmistakable once you were looking for them. Andre had built his business empire by noticing patterns others missed. This one was clear to him now. There was systemic bias built into how this airport operated, and it wasn't accidental. As Andre approached the security checkpoint where Olivia and Lily had been stopped, he saw Officer Daniels, the same agent who had pulled his family aside. The man was still working, still selecting travelers for random checks. Andre stood off to the side and watched for 15 minutes. In that time, Daniels pulled aside 3 people for additional screening. All were people of color. Andre had seen enough. He checked his watch. Almost time for the meeting. He made his way to the administrative section of the airport, his mind already formulating a plan for the changes that needed to happen. When he arrived at the executive conference room, Patricia was waiting outside. "They're all here, Mr. Wilson," she said quietly. "The TSA director, both officers, and I've also asked our head of HR to join." "Good thinking." Andre nodded. "Have they been told anything about why they're here?" "Only that the owner has concerns about security protocols. They seem nervous." "They should be," Andre said, his voice calm but firm. He took a moment to compose himself before entering. This meeting wasn't about venting his personal anger, however justified it might be. This was about creating real, lasting change. Andre walked into the room and every head turned. 4 people sat around the large conference table. The TSA director, a gray-haired man named Richard Baker, Officers Daniels and Porter from the security checkpoint, and Diane Lee, the airport's HR director. "Good afternoon," Andre said as he closed the door behind him. "Thank you for meeting on such short notice." Richard Baker stood up, extending his hand. "Mr. Wilson, it's an honor to finally meet you. We've heard great things about your vision for the airport." Andre shook his hand briefly. "Have a seat, Mr. Baker. We have important matters to discuss." Once everyone was seated, Andre remained standing. He didn't immediately speak, instead walking to the large screen on the wall and picking up a remote. "I want to start by showing you some footage from this morning," he said, turning on the screen. He played the security camera video of Olivia and Lily being pulled aside and subjected to the extensive search. No one in the room spoke as they watched. Officer Daniels shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Officer Porter stared at her hands. When the video ended, Andre turned to face them. "Would anyone like to explain why this passenger and her child were selected for additional screening when dozens of others went through without any extra checks?" Officer Daniels cleared his throat. "Sir, we conduct random screenings as part of our security protocols. It's standard procedure." "Random," Andre repeated, his voice level. "Let's talk about what random actually means. In a truly random selection, every passenger would have an equal chance of being chosen." He clicked the remote again, showing more footage from the morning. "In the hour surrounding this incident, your checkpoint conducted 8 random screenings. 7 of those 8 were people of color." The room fell silent. "That's not random, Officer Daniels. That's profiling." Richard Baker leaned forward. "Mr. Wilson, I assure you that TSA does not condone racial profiling. We have strict policies against it." "Policies on paper mean nothing if they're not enforced in practice," Andre replied. "What I witnessed this morning, what happens every day in this airport, tells me those policies are being ignored." He set down the remote and placed both hands on the table, leaning forward. "What none of you knew until this moment is that the woman in this video is my wife, Dr. Olivia Wilson. The little girl is our daughter, Lily." The color drained from Officer Daniels's face. Officer Porter looked like she might be sick. "But that shouldn't matter," Andre continued. "She shouldn't have to be married to the owner of the airport to be treated with dignity and respect. Every traveler deserves that, regardless of who they are or what they look like." Diane from HR spoke up. "Mr. Wilson, this is deeply concerning. I had no idea this was happening to this extent." "That's part of the problem," Andre said. "We haven't been looking for it, so we haven't seen it. But now we've seen it, and we're going to address it. Today." Richard Baker straightened his tie, nervously. "What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Wilson?" "Not proposing, Mr. Baker. Directing." Andre's voice was steel, wrapped in velvet. Starting immediately, we're implementing a complete overhaul of security practices at this airport. Andre outlined his plan. New training programs for all security personnel, focusing on unconscious bias and cultural sensitivity. A review. Board to analyze security selection patterns. Body cameras for all TSA agents, and a new passenger feedback system that would allow travelers to report their experiences anonymously. Additionally, Andre said, looking directly at Officers Daniels and Porter, there will be consequences for the discriminatory practices we've already identified. Officer Porter finally spoke up, her voice small. Will we lose our jobs? Andre considered the question carefully. I believe in accountability, but I also believe in growth and second chances. You'll both be suspended for 2 weeks without pay. When you return, you'll go through the new training program and be on probation for 6 months. During that time, your selections for additional screening will be reviewed daily. If there's any pattern of bias, then yes, you will lose your jobs. Turned to Richard Baker. As for leadership, Mr. Baker, I expect you to take personal responsibility for implementing these changes. If you can't or won't do that effectively, I'll find someone who will. Baker nodded stiffly. I understand, sir. Andre finally took a seat at the head of the table. I didn't buy this airport just to make money. I bought it because I believe transportation is the lifeblood of a community. How we move through the world matters. Who gets stopped and who gets to pass freely matters. The experience travelers have in our airport colors how they see our entire city. He leaned forward, making eye contact with each person. I want this to be the airport where everyone, regardless of race, religion, or background, feels safe and respected. I want us to set the standard that other airports follow. And that transformation starts today in this room with all of us. For the next hour, they discussed the details of implementing Andre's directives. By the time the meeting ended, there was a clear plan in place with specific responsibilities assigned and deadlines set. As everyone filed out, Andre asked Officer Daniels to stay behind. When they were alone, Andre spoke quietly. I want to understand something. When you selected my wife and daughter this morning, what were you thinking? What went through your mind that made you single them out? Officer Daniels stared at the floor for a long moment before answering. Honestly, sir, I don't know. I didn't consciously think I'm going to stop that black woman. It was just, I don't know. It felt like who I should check. Andre nodded slowly. That's what makes bias so dangerous. It operates below the surface, guiding our actions even when we don't realize it. The first step to changing it is acknowledging it exists. He stood up to leave, then paused. My daughter asked my wife why they were being checked when no one else was. She's 5 years old and she already sees the unfairness. Think about that. As Andre walked out of the airport, his phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. Landed safely, Mom says hi, love you. He smiled, typing back. Give Lily a big hug from me. Love you both. We'll talk tonight. I have some interesting news to share. Andre looked up at the airport, its glass and steel gleaming in the afternoon sun. By the time Olivia and Lily returned from their trip, this place would already be changing. It wouldn't be perfect. Deeply ingrained biases don't disappear overnight, but it would be the beginning of something important. And all because his wife had sent a simple text about being randomly selected at the airport security line. Olivia settled into the cozy armchair in her mother's living room, watching Lily play with the set of wooden blocks her grandmother had saved from Olivia's childhood. The afternoon sun streamed through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the familiar space that always felt like coming home. She's got your focus, Olivia's mother Gloria said as she handed her daughter a steaming mug of tea. Look at how carefully she's building that tower. Olivia smiled, taking the mug gratefully. Thanks, Mom. And yes, she's definitely detail-oriented. Gets that from both sides of the family. Gloria sat down across from her daughter, studying her face. Something happened at the airport, didn't it? I can tell by that little crease between your eyebrows. Olivia sighed. Her mother had always been able to read her like a book. It was nothing I haven't dealt with before. Just the usual random selection at security. With Lily there? Gloria's voice sharpened with concern. Yes. And she noticed. Asked why we were the only ones being checked. Olivia took a sip of her tea, trying to swallow down the frustration that rose again at the memory. I wasn't ready for her to see that part of our reality yet. Gloria watched her granddaughter playing, her expression thoughtful. Children see more than we think. Maybe it's better that she learns about these things with you by her side to help her understand. Maybe, Olivia conceded. I just wish she didn't have to understand it at all. The soft chime of Olivia's phone interrupted the moment. She glanced. At the screen, Andre was calling. It's your husband, Gloria said with a knowing smile. Go talk to him. I'll keep an eye on my grandbaby. Olivia stepped onto the back porch, closing the door softly behind her. The familiar scent of her mother's rose garden enveloped her as she answered the call. Hey, you, she said warmly. We made it safe and sound. Mom's already spoiling Lily with cookies and stories. I'm glad you arrived safely, Andre replied, but something in his voice made Olivia pause. There was a tension there, an undercurrent of controlled emotion that she recognized from times when he was deeply invested in something. What's going on? She asked. You sound intense. There was a brief silence before Andre spoke again. I got your text about what happened at the airport. Oh, that. Olivia leaned against the porch railing. It wasn't a big deal, just the usual nonsense. It was a big deal, Liv, Andre said, his voice firm but gentle. And there's something I need to tell you, something I probably should have told you sooner. Olivia straightened, suddenly alert. What is it? The airport you flew out of today? I own it. The words hung in the air between them. Olivia gripped the phone tighter, sure she had misheard. You what? I bought it 3 months ago. The majority. Stake, at least. It was the big project I've been working on, the one I couldn't talk about until everything was finalized. Olivia sank slowly into one of the porch chairs, her mind racing to catch up with this revelation. 3 months ago? And you didn't tell me? I wanted to wait until the transition was complete, Andre explained. And I wanted to observe how the airport really operated before anyone knew who was in charge. I needed to see the unfiltered truth. Well, you certainly got that today, Olivia said, a hint of bitter laughter in her voice. Yes, Andre agreed, his tone hardening slightly. I saw the security footage, Liv. I watched what they did to you and Lily. Now it was Olivia's turn to be surprised. You watched it? How? I have access to all the camera feeds. I found the time stamp from when you would have gone through security and saw everything. He paused. I also called an emergency meeting with the TSA director and the agents who stopped you. Olivia's eyes widened. You did what? I confronted them, showed them the footage, made it clear that what happened wasn't random at all, and that things are going to change. Olivia sat in stunned silence for a moment, trying to process everything. Part of her felt a fierce pride in her husband's immediate action. Another part felt an unexpected twinge of something else. Not quite embarrassment, but a strange discomfort at being the unwitting catalyst for his intervention. Liv, are you there? I'm here, she said, finding her voice again. I'm just processing. This is a lot to take in. I know, Andre acknowledged. And I'm sorry I didn't tell you about the airport sooner. I wanted it to be a surprise when everything was in place. Well, surprise accomplished, Olivia said, a small smile finally breaking through her shock. So my husband owns an airport. That's not a sentence I ever expected to say. Andre laughed, the tension between them easing slightly. It's not something I ever expected to hear you say either. But yes, I own an airport, and now I'm going to make sure it's an airport where what happened to you and Lily never happens to anyone else. Olivia leaned back in the chair, gazing up at the clear blue sky. What exactly did you say to them? The TSA people? Andre described the meeting in detail, how he'd shown them the footage, pointed out the pattern of bias in their random selections, and outlined his plan for immediate changes. He told her about the suspension of the officers involved, the new training programs, and the accountability measures he was implementing. As he spoke, Olivia felt a warmth spreading through her chest. Not just pride in her husband's actions, but hope. Real hope that something might actually change. "You did all that in one afternoon?" she asked when he finished. "It's just the beginning," Andre replied. "There's so much more to do. But yes, we've started. I wish I could have seen their faces when you told them I was your wife," Olivia said, unable to suppress a smile at the thought. "It was quite a moment," Andre admitted. "But I also made it clear that you shouldn't have to be married to the owner to be treated with dignity." Olivia nodded even though he couldn't see her. "That's the most important part. This isn't just about me or Lily. It's about everyone who's ever been profiled or made to feel less than because of how they look." They talked for a while longer, Andre sharing more details about his plans for the airport, and Olivia telling him about their flight and arrival at her mother's house. By the time they said goodbye, promising to talk again tomorrow, Olivia felt both drained and energized, a peculiar combination of emotions that often accompanied moments of unexpected change. When she went back inside, Gloria took one look at her face and said, "Well, that was quite a call, wasn't it?" Olivia shook her head in amazement. "Mom, you won't believe what Andre just told me." She shared the whole story with her mother, whose expressions ranged from shocked to amused to fiercely proud as Olivia recounted Andre's revelation and his immediate actions. "That man," Gloria said when Olivia finished, a gleam of approval in her eyes. "I always knew he was special, but this is something else." "It is," Olivia agreed. "But it's also complicated. What if people think I only got fair treatment because of who my husband is?" Gloria reached across and took her daughter's hand. "Honey, fair treatment shouldn't depend on who you know or who you're married to. But sometimes it takes someone with power to change their things for everyone. Andre's using his position to make things better not just for you, but for all the people who don't have a voice." Lily looked up from her blocks, sensing the serious conversation. "Mommy, are you talking about the mean people at the airport?" Olivia and Gloria exchanged glances. Then Olivia patted the couch beside her. "Come here, sweetie." Lily abandoned her tower and climbed up next to her mother, snuggling into her side. "Yes, we were talking about what happened at the airport," Olivia said carefully. "And it turns out that Daddy is going to help make sure that doesn't happen to other people." Lily's eyes widened. "Daddy's going to make the airport people be nice?" Olivia smiled. "He's going to try to make sure everyone at the airport treats all people fairly, no matter what they look like." "Good," Lily said with the simple certainty of a child. "Because that man was mean and he only picked us because our skin is brown. That's not fair." Gloria's eyes misted slightly at her granddaughter's words. "You're right, baby. It's not fair. But your daddy is working to change that." Later that evening, after they'd had dinner and Lily was tucked into bed in the guest room, Olivia sat with her mother on the back porch, watching fireflies dance in the gathering dusk. "I keep thinking about what Lily said," Olivia mused, "about the agent picking us because our skin is brown. She's 5 years old and she already sees it so clearly." Gloria nodded slowly. "Children have a way of cutting through all the noise and seeing the simple truth. It makes me sad that she has to know about this already," Olivia admitted. "That this is part of her world." "It was part of your world at her age too," Gloria reminded her gently. "And mine before that. The difference is, now there's a chance for real change. Andre has the power to actually do something about it, at least at that airport." Olivia thought about that, about the generations of women in her family who had faced discrimination with dignity and strength, but without the ability to change the systems that perpetuated it. She thought about her husband using his position and influence to challenge those systems directly. "You know what's ironic?" she said after a moment. "If they hadn't stopped me, if they had just let me go through like everyone else, Andre might never have seen firsthand how bias operates in his airport. My getting profiled might end up helping countless other travelers." "Sometimes that's how change happens," Gloria said wisely. "Not because powerful people suddenly decide to do better, but because they're forced to see the reality that others have been living with all along. Olivia's phone buzzed with a text from Andre. Just left the airport. New policies already being drafted. Thinking of you and Lily. Give her a kiss for me. She smiled as she typed back. She's already asleep. Dreaming of the day when everyone gets treated fairly at airports. So proud of what you're doing. Love you. As she set her phone down, Olivia felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger at what had happened, pride in her husband's response, hope for the changes to come, and a deep, abiding love for her daughter, who was learning hard truths too young but would grow up seeing that those truths could be challenged and changed. Tomorrow, she would wake up in her childhood home, spend the day showing Lily all her favorite places from growing up, and continue her vacation as planned. But something fundamental had shifted. Her random selection at the airport had set in motion events that might change countless lives, and that knowledge, despite everything, felt a little bit like justice. Andre didn't waste any time. The morning after his confrontation with the TSA officials, he arrived at the airport before sunrise. He wanted to see the early operations, to understand the full scope of what needed to change. As he walked through the quiet terminals, he made notes on his phone, documenting everything from signage to staff interactions. By 7 a.m., the airport was coming alive. Andre positioned himself near the security checkpoint where Olivia and Lily had been stopped. He watched silently as travelers began streaming through, observing patterns in how people were treated. Patricia Reynolds, the operations director, found him there an hour later. "Mr. Wilson, I've been looking for you," she said, slightly out of breath. "Your office called. They said you weren't answering your phone." Andre pulled his phone from his pocket. He'd switched it to silent and had missed several calls. "Sorry about that. I wanted to focus on what's happening here." "And what have you seen?" Patricia asked, her voice low. "Enough to know yesterday wasn't an isolated incident," Andre replied grimly. "I've counted 7 random screenings in the past hour. 6 of them were people of color." Patricia nodded, unsurprised but troubled. "I pulled the data you requested last night. Over the past year, passengers who appear to be Middle Eastern, African American, or Hispanic were 3 times more likely to be selected for additional screening than white passengers." Andre's jaw tightened. "We have the numbers to prove it now. No one can claim this is coincidence." They moved to a quiet corner near a coffee shop. Andre ordered 2 coffees, then turned back to Patricia. "I need your help with something important," he said. "I want to form a committee to oversee the changes we're making. Not just airport executives, but community leaders, civil rights experts, and most importantly, travelers who have experienced discrimination firsthand." Patricia looked thoughtful. "That's unconventional for airport operations. But I think it's exactly what we need. Can you help me identify the right people? I want this committee up and running within 2 weeks." "I can start making calls today," Patricia agreed. "I have some contacts who would be perfect." "Good." Andre took a sip of his coffee. "And I want to meet with every shift of TSA agents, personally. No press, no cameras. Just honest conversations about what needs to change." Patricia raised an eyebrow. "All shifts? That's over 200 agents." "Then I better get started." Andre checked his watch. "When does the first shift end today?" 3 p.m. "Book a conference room. I'll be there." As Patricia walked away to make arrangements, Andre's phone rang. It was Olivia. "Hey," he answered warmly. "How's Atlanta?" "It's good. Mom and Lily are making pancakes." Olivia's voice softened. "I've been thinking about what you told me yesterday. About the airport, the meeting with TSA. What's your plan now?" Andre watched a family with young children navigate the security line, the parents looking tense as they approached the checkpoint. "I'm making big changes, Liv, starting today." He shared his morning observations and his plans for the committee and staff meetings. As he spoke, he could almost see Olivia nodding thoughtfully on the other end of the line. "That's good," she said when he finished. "But Andre, this isn't just about new policies or training. This is about changing a culture that's been in place for decades. I know, Andre acknowledged. That's why I need your help. When you get back, would you be willing to share your experiences? Not just yesterday's, but all the times you've been profiled while traveling? The committee needs to hear first-hand accounts. There was a pause before Olivia answered. You know, I don't usually talk about those experiences publicly. It's difficult. I understand, Andre said gently. But your voice would be powerful. Live. People respect you, and you have a way of making others understand complex issues. Let me think about it, Olivia said. But speaking of voices that need to be heard, I had an idea last night. What about creating an anonymous reporting system for travelers? A way for people to document their experiences without fear of retaliation or dismissal? Andre straightened, immediately seeing the potential. That's brilliant. We could set up kiosks throughout the airport, maybe even develop an app. The data could help identify problem areas and track progress. Exactly, Olivia agreed. And it would give people who've been mistreated a way to be heard, even if they don't have the connections or resources to file formal complaints. By the time they ended their call, Andre had a clearer vision of what needed to happen. The transformation wouldn't be quick or easy, but with Olivia's insights and his position, they could make real, lasting change. That afternoon, Andre addressed his first group of TSA agents. The conference room was packed, with officers standing along the walls when the seats filled up. Most looked nervous, having heard about yesterday's confrontation with their colleagues. Andre didn't start with accusations or statistics. Instead, he began with a story. My daughter is 5 years old, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the silent room. Yesterday, she asked her mother why they were the only ones being checked at security. She noticed what none of the adults were willing to acknowledge, that they were being treated differently because of the color of their skin. He looked around the room, making eye contact with as many officers as possible. I'm not here to shame anyone or to make sweeping accusations. I believe most of you came to this job with good intentions, to keep people safe, to protect our transportation systems. But somewhere along the way, biases crept in. Maybe they were never addressed in your training. Maybe they were even encouraged by certain policies or by leadership. Whatever the reason, the result is that travelers like my wife and daughter, like so many others who don't look like the majority, are being subjected to unfair treatment. And that stops now. For the next hour, Andre outlined his vision for a fair and effective security system. He emphasized that security and equality weren't mutually exclusive, and a system built on profiling was inherently flawed because it created blind spots and wasted resources. To his surprise, many of the officers seemed relieved by his approach. Several spoke up with their own concerns about current practices and suggestions for improvement. One veteran officer admitted that he'd been uncomfortable with the unofficial "watch for these types" guidelines for years, but hadn't felt empowered to challenge them. By the end of the meeting, Andre had a list of insights and ideas directly from the frontline staff. He promised to incorporate their feedback into the changes being developed and to keep them involved in the process. This isn't about pointing fingers, he concluded. It's about building something better, something we can all be proud of. I'm asking for your help in making this airport a model for others to follow. As the days passed, Andre's vision began taking shape. The oversight committee was formed, including community leaders, civil rights attorneys, security experts, and travelers with diverse backgrounds. Olivia had agreed to participate, bringing not only her personal experiences but also her perspective as a respected doctor who understood systems and how to improve them. The anonymous reporting system was already in development, with plans for kiosks throughout the terminal and an accompanying app. New training programs were being created, focusing on unconscious bias, cultural sensitivity, and effective security measures that didn't rely on racial profiling. 1 week after the incident with Olivia and Lily, Andre held a press conference. He hadn't planned to go public so soon, but word of the changes had begun to leak and he wanted to control the narrative. Standing at the podium in the airport's main terminal with Patricia and the committee members behind him, Andre addressed, the gathered reporters. "Today I am officially announcing that I have acquired majority ownership of this airport," he began. "But more importantly, I am announcing a comprehensive transformation of how we operate, particularly in terms of security procedures and passenger experience." He outlined the changes already underway and the goals for the future. He was honest about the problems that had been identified but focused primarily on solutions and the commitment to improvement. "This airport serves as a gateway to our city," he said toward the end of his remarks. "The experience travelers have here colors how they view our entire community. We have a responsibility to ensure that experience is not just efficient and safe but also fair and respectful for everyone, regardless of what they look like or where they come from." The questions from reporters were predictably pointed. One asked if these changes were only happening because his own wife had been profiled. "Would I have seen the problem as clearly if it hadn't affected my family personally? I can't say for certain," Andre answered honestly. "But that's precisely the issue with privilege. It can blind us to realities that others face every day. What happened to my wife and daughter happens to countless travelers who don't have the platform or power to address it. The difference is that I'm in a position to make systemic changes, and I intend to use that position to ensure everyone receives the fair treatment they deserve." Another reporter asked about the TSA officers who had been involved in the incident with Olivia and Lily. "Those officers have been temporarily suspended and will undergo comprehensive retraining," Andre explained. "But this isn't about punishing individuals. This is about changing a culture and a system that enabled and perhaps even encouraged biased practices. The responsibility for that lies primarily with leadership, including me, now that I'm aware of the problem." The press conference received national attention. By that evening, Andre's phone was ringing with calls from officials at other airports around the country, interested in learning more about the changes being implemented. One call, in particular, stood out, from the Federal Aviation Administration. The director wanted to discuss potentially using Andre's airport as a pilot site for new national guidelines on equitable security practices. When Andre shared this news with Olivia that night, she was quiet for a moment. "It's amazing how far this has come in just a week," she finally said. "From one random inspection to potentially changing airport security across the country." "It's still early," Andre cautioned. "There will be resistance. Change this fundamental doesn't happen overnight." "I know," Olivia agreed. "But it's a start. A real start." The next day, Andre received an unexpected visitor at his airport office. Officer Daniels, one of the TSA agents who had stopped Olivia and Lily, had requested a meeting. He was still on suspension, so Andre was surprised by the request but agreed to see him. Officer Daniels sat stiffly in the chair across from Andre's desk, clearly uncomfortable but determined. "Thank you for meeting with me, Mr. Wilson," he began. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since our conversation last week. A lot of soul-searching." Andre nodded but didn't interrupt. "At first I was angry about being suspended," Daniels continued. "I told myself I was just doing my job, following protocol. But then I started really examining my decisions that day and on other days. And I realized—" He paused, struggling with the admission. "I realized you were right. My selections weren't random. They were based on biases I didn't even know I had." "That's a difficult thing to acknowledge," Andre said quietly. "I appreciate your honesty." Daniel straightened in his chair. "I want to do better, not just to keep my job, but because it's the right thing to do. I've enrolled in some additional training courses on my own, beyond what the airport is requiring. And I've been talking with my colleagues about forming a peer accountability group when we return to work." Andre leaned forward, genuinely interested. "What would that involve?" "We'd check each other's selection patterns, call each other out if we notice bias creeping in, support each other in developing better practices." Daniels looked Andre in the eye for the first time. "If you're serious about changing the culture, it has to come from within too, not just from the top down." "I couldn't agree more," Andre said. "Would you be willing to work with the Oversight Committee on developing this idea further?" Daniels looked surprised but nodded. "Yes, sir. I would." As the officer left, Andre reflected on their conversation. True change required both leadership, commitment, and individual transformation. Daniel's initiative was a hopeful sign that the latter was possible. That afternoon, Andre attended the second meeting of the Oversight Committee. They gathered in a large conference room, the table filled with diverse faces and perspectives. Olivia sat across from him, having flown back early from Atlanta specifically for this meeting. The discussion was lively and occasionally heated as they debated various approaches to addressing the deep-seated issues in airport security. But beneath the differences in opinion was a shared commitment to creating something better. Toward the end of the meeting, a community activist named Hassan, who had been relatively quiet until then, spoke up. "What we're doing here is important," he said, looking around the table. "But I want us to remember something. This isn't just about making travelers feel better about their airport experience. This is about dignity. This is about challenging a system that has taught some people that they are inherently suspicious because of their skin color or religious attire." He turned to Andre. "You've started something significant here, Mr. Wilson, but the real test will be what happens when the media attention fades. Will these changes become permanent, or will things slowly drift back to the way they were?" Andre nodded, acknowledging the valid concern. "That's why this committee isn't temporary. That's why we're embedding these changes in policy and training in the very structure of how this airport operates. And that's why we need all of you to hold us accountable for the long term, not just during this moment of transformation." As the meeting concluded, Andre walked with Olivia toward the terminal. They passed through the same security checkpoint where she and Lily had been stopped just over a week ago. Already there were visible changes. New signage explaining passengers' rights, security officers wearing body cameras, and a prototype of the feedback kiosk being tested nearby. "It's a good start," Olivia said, watching a diverse group of travelers move through the checkpoint without incident. "But there's still so much to do." Andre took her hand, squeezing it gently. "Yes, there is. But we're doing it together. And that makes all the difference." They walked through the airport that Andre now owned, but that in many ways now owned him. His attention, his commitment, his vision for what was possible when people with power chose to use it for positive change. A week ago, Olivia had been randomly selected for additional screening. Today, she was helping to transform the very system that had targeted her. It wasn't justice exactly. Nothing could erase the humiliation she and so many others had experienced. But it was progress. Real, tangible progress, and sometimes that was enough to build hope for a better future. 3 months had passed since that fateful day when Olivia and Lily were pulled aside for a random inspection. 3 months of intense work, challenging conversations, and meaningful changes at the airport. Now, they were returning from another visit to Grandma Gloria's house, and Olivia couldn't help but feel a flutter of curiosity about what they would experience this time. "Are we going to see Daddy at the airport?" Lily asked, as they gathered their bags at Atlanta's terminal, ready to head home. "Yes, he's meeting us there," Olivia replied. Andre had insisted on being present for their return trip, though he'd promised not to make a big deal out of it. "He's excited to show us all the new things at the airport." Their flight was smooth, with Lily chattering excitedly about all the fun she'd had with her grandmother. Olivia half listened, her mind drifting to the changes that had taken place since their last journey through security. Andre had kept her updated, of course. The Oversight Committee was now fully established and meeting regularly. The anonymous reporting system was operational, with kiosks throughout the terminals and an app that had been downloaded thousands of times. New training programs had been implemented for all security personnel, focusing on unconscious bias and respectful interactions. But would it actually feel different? Or would it be like so many well-intentioned initiatives that looked good on paper but failed to change the day-to-day reality? As the plane touched down, Lily pressed her face against the window. "We're home!" Olivia smiled at her daughter's excitement. "Yes, we are. And guess what? We don't have to rush today. Daddy made sure our bags will be waiting for us so we can take our time." They disembarked with the other passengers, Lily skipping along beside Olivia as they made their way through the terminal. Olivia couldn't help but notice the differences immediately. New signs welcomed travelers in multiple languages. Information booths were staffed with people wearing badges that indicated which languages they spoke, and most notably, there was a different energy among the staff. More smiles, more patience, more genuine helpfulness. As they approached the area where they would need to exit the secure zone, Olivia spotted Andre waiting. He was dressed casually, not in his usual business attire, and was chatting with an elderly couple who appeared to be asking for directions. Lily spotted him too and broke into a run. "Daddy!" Andre turned just in time to catch his daughter as she launched herself into his arms. "There's my girl," he said, lifting her high before pulling her into a tight hug. "I missed you so much." Olivia reached them, and Andre shifted Lily to one arm so he could embrace his wife with the other. "Welcome home," he murmured into her hair. "It's good to be back," Olivia replied, feeling the tension she hadn't even realized she was carrying start to melt away. Andre set Lily down but kept hold of her hand. "I thought we'd walk through the main terminal so you can see some of the changes before we head home." Olivia nodded, curious to see everything he'd been telling her about over the phone. They started walking, Andre pointing out various improvements, the new feedback kiosks, the remodeled waiting areas with more comfortable seating, the nursing rooms for mothers with infants, but it was the security checkpoint that Olivia was most interested to see. As they approached, she felt a slight tightening in her chest, a reflexive response to a place where she'd experienced humiliation. Andre seemed to sense her reaction. He squeezed her hand gently. "It's different now," he assured her. "Not perfect, but better." They paused at a spot where they could observe without being in the way. Olivia watched carefully as travelers moved through the checkpoint. The most obvious change was the diversity of the TSA staff. There were officers of various races, ages, and backgrounds. There were also cameras everywhere, clearly visible to both travelers and staff. The cameras serve two purposes, Andre explained quietly. They protect travelers from unfair treatment, but they also protect officers from false accusations. Everything is recorded and reviewed. Olivia nodded, still watching. "Are the selections truly random now?" "As much as possible," Andre replied. "We've implemented a system where the computer randomly flags travelers for additional screening based on a number generator, not on officer discretion. Officers can still select someone if they notice actually suspicious behavior, but they have to document exactly what they observed that raised concerns." As they watched, a young man was directed to step aside for additional screening. He appeared to be of Middle Eastern descent, and Olivia felt a momentary concern. But then she noticed something. The officer handling the screening was also Middle Eastern, and he spoke to the young man with respect, explaining each step of the process clearly. "We've tried to be thoughtful about staffing," Andre said, following her gaze. "We make sure that officers with language skills and cultural knowledge are available at all checkpoints. It helps reduce misunderstandings and makes the experience less intimidating for travelers." They continued their observation for a few more minutes. Olivia noted that several travelers were selected for additional screening. An elderly white woman, a young black man, a middle-aged Asian couple. There didn't seem to be any pattern to the selections beyond what one would expect from genuine randomness. "What about Officer Daniels?" Olivia asked suddenly, remembering the man who had pulled her and Lily aside 3 months ago. Andre's expression softened slightly. "He came back after his suspension and retraining. Actually, he's become one of our strongest advocates for the new approach. He leads peer accountability sessions and has been instrumental in getting buy-in from officers who were resistant to change." "Really?" Olivia was genuinely surprised. "Really," Andre confirmed. "People can change when they're given the right information and incentives. Not everyone, of course, but many. We've had to let some officers go who couldn't or wouldn't adapt, but they've been the minority." As they turned to leave, Olivia noticed Officer Daniels himself at one of the checkpoints. He glanced up and saw them, recognition flashing across his face. After a moment's hesitation, he gave a small, respectful nod in their direction. Olivia found herself nodding back. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but an acknowledgement of the effort to change. They continued their tour of the airport, with Andre proudly showing them more improvements: water bottle filling stations, prayer rooms for travelers of various faiths, play areas for children, and tech lounges where people could work while waiting for flights. The best part, Andre said as they approached the exit, is that these changes aren't just cosmetic. We're tracking the data, and complaints about discriminatory treatment are down by over 70%. Passenger satisfaction ratings have increased across all demographic groups. And security effectiveness hasn't been compromised. If anything, it's improved because officers are focusing on actual suspicious behaviors rather than stereotypes. Outside, their driver was waiting to take them home. As they settled into the car, Lily yawned widely, tired from the journey and the excitement of seeing her father. "Daddy," she said sleepily, leaning against him, "I like your airport. It's nice." Andre smiled, stroking her hair. "Thanks, sweetheart. I'm glad you think so." Olivia watched the two of them, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Pride in what Andre had accomplished. Gratitude that her daughter might grow up in a world slightly better than the one she had known. And a cautious hope that this might be the start of something larger. Later that evening, after Lily was tucked into bed, Olivia and Andre sat on their back patio, sharing a bottle of wine and catching up properly after their time apart. "The Oversight Committee wants to present our model at the National Transportation Safety Conference next month," Andre told her. "They think other airports could benefit from implementing similar changes." "That's wonderful," Olivia said sincerely. "How many airports have reached out so far?" 15 at last count. "Some are just curious, but others seem genuinely interested in making changes." Andre swirled the wine in his glass thoughtfully. "The FAA is paying attention too. There's talk of new national guidelines based partly on what we've developed." Olivia leaned back in her chair, looking up at the stars. "When I was pulled aside that day, I never imagined it would lead to all this." "That's often how change happens," Andre observed. "Not through grand plans, but through moments that force us to see what needs fixing." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Olivia spoke again. "I got a call from Hassan yesterday," she said, referring to the community activist who had been skeptical at that early oversight committee meeting. "He wants me to speak at a community forum about our experience and the changes at the airport." Andre looked at her with interest. "Are you going to do it?" Olivia nodded slowly. "I think so. For a long time I just dealt with these things quietly. Kept my head down, focused on my work, tried not to let it affect me too much. But I'm starting to think that silence doesn't serve anyone. Not me, not Lily. Not all the people who don't have the platform or privilege to speak up." "I think you'd be great," Andre said warmly. "Your perspective as both a successful professional and someone who's experienced discrimination firsthand is powerful." "It's not just about the airport anymore," Olivia continued, her thoughts crystallizing as she spoke. "What we've done there could be a model for addressing bias in other systems too. Healthcare, education, housing, law enforcement. The principles are the same. Acknowledge the problem, implement concrete changes, track the data, hold people accountable." Andre reached across the table and took her hand. "Dr. Olivia Wilson, changemaker. I like the sound of that." She smiled, squeezing his, "and I learned from the best, Mr. Airport owner." The next morning, Olivia woke early. She slipped out of bed, careful not to disturb Andre, and went to check on Lily. Her daughter was still fast asleep, clutching the stuffed bunny that had been so carelessly handled during that security check 3 months ago. Olivia stood in the doorway, watching Lily's peaceful sleep and thinking about the future they were helping to build. There would still be challenges, setbacks, moments of frustration. Change was never linear or complete. But they had started something important, something that might make Lily's journey through the world a little bit easier than Olivia's had. Then as she turned to head downstairs, Olivia's phone buzzed with a text. It was from Hassan. Community forum confirmed for next Saturday. Still good for you to speak? Olivia typed back without hesitation. Absolutely. Count me in. In the kitchen, she started the coffee and opened her laptop. If she was going to speak at this forum, she wanted to be prepared. She began typing notes about her experience at the airport, the changes that had been implemented, and the lessons that could be applied elsewhere. By the time Andre and Lily came downstairs, Olivia had outlined a compelling presentation, not just about what had happened to her, but about how one incident had sparked a transformation that was now spreading beyond a single airport to potentially change practices nationwide. Morning, changemaker, Andre said with a smile, kissing the top of her head. You're up early. Lots to do, Olivia replied, returning his smile. Turns out getting randomly selected at an airport can lead to some pretty unexpected places. Lily climbed onto a stool at the kitchen counter, still clutching her bunny. Mommy, are we going to fly on a plane again soon? I like Daddy's airport now. Olivia and Andre exchanged glances, both suppressing smiles at Daddy's airport. We might, Olivia told her daughter. And yes, it is much better now. But the best part is that other airports might get better too, so everyone can have a good experience when they travel. Lily nodded sagely, as if this made perfect sense to her 5-year-old mind. That's good. Nobody should get picked just 'cause of their skin. That's not fair. No, it's not, Olivia agreed, marveling at her daughter's simple wisdom. And that's why we have to speak up when we see unfair things happening. Later that day, Olivia received an email from the airport's communications team. They wanted to feature her story, anonymously if she preferred, in a case study about the transformation of security practices. The case study would be shared with other airports and transportation hubs looking to implement similar changes. Olivia forwarded the email to Andre with a simple message. What do you think? Use my real name? His reply came quickly. Entirely your choice. But your story is powerful. It might help others speak up too. After considering it carefully, Olivia wrote back to the communications team. You can use my real name and story. Change happens when we're willing to be visible. 3 days later, Olivia found herself standing at the same security checkpoint where she and Lily had been pulled aside months ago. This time she was there for a different purpose, to be interviewed by a national news program about the changes at the airport and how they were spreading to other transportation hubs across the country. As the camera crew set up, Olivia looked around at the busy checkpoint. Travelers moved through efficiently, treated with respect regardless of their appearance. TSA officers worked professionally, the new protocols evident in their interactions. The anonymous feedback kiosks stood ready for anyone who wanted to report their experience, good or bad. It wasn't perfect. No system run by humans ever could be. But it was better, measurably, meaningfully better. And it had started with one random inspection that wasn't random at all. The reporter approached, microphone in hand. Dr. Wilson, we're ready to begin. When you are. Olivia nodded, straightening her shoulders. She was ready, not just for this interview, but for the larger role she now understood she could play in creating change. Let's do this, she said, stepping forward to tell her story.